keep those, cherish those, learn those, and spread the word. Fight for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Dozier, you got your picture yet?
Mr. Chair, we were going to take a picture, but if past experience proves, I know that the other commissioners may want to be in the picture, so at your discretion, we'll join you up there.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Ladies, if you want to circle around to the dais on either side, and yes, ma'am.
Yes, bring the trophy. Wait,
There you
bring
go.
the trophy.
Yes. They wouldn't have it any other way.
I wouldn't trust us with the trophy.
Yeah, don't let us hold it. Just bring it.
Anywhere I'm not blocking you.
We're gonna just take turns so they don't look at the wrong
Yeah,
camera.
sounds perfect.
Okay.
You got it.
Yeah. Well done. Well done. Yeah. Okay. We're gonna do 2 cameras, so I'll be first, and then you're up next. All right. Ready? 1, 2, 3. I'm going to take one more, please. 1, 2, 3. Beautiful. Okay, one more.
Yeah. Yeah, 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Do y'all want to do the chop? No? Hey, do y'all want to go? You want to? Do you want to do the chop? Or are they finished? You want to do the chop?
Thank you so much.
What do we do?
Hey, we have a day of service for that. We just had a day of service. Huh?
Yeah, you'll see all the pictures.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I've never, we've never had so much fragrance up here on the stairs. It's got to be the best smelling team of all time.
Okay. So we'll move on now. Hey, on the way out, Coach said for us to let us know if there's anything that they can do for us. I'm thinking Commissioner Dozier, maybe our next day of service or community service type of event, we can invite them to come out to participate with us.
The team?
Yeah, the team.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
You'll have to forgive me, Mr. Chair. Coach just asked me to toss out the first pitch. I'm going to hold her to it now that it's on the record because that's pretty exciting. So we will have a good partnership with
Awesome.
the FSU softball team.
Coach, thank you so much.
Excellent.
Thank you all. Thank you all.
Coach, I want you to know, we used to have a Leon County softball team. They wouldn't let me play. I don't know why.
Yeah, Coach, we also had a kickball team, and then there was an ACL and a broken shoulder. Didn't last long. Yeah, thank you.
Wasn't Vince the commissioner of the kickball team, league?
He was pretty bad at it.
Commissioner.
All right, Commissioner Dozier, I'll give you the pleasure of recognizing our next speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you all for taking a moment. That really was for us a really big event, and for Chris Rito, our esteemed Executive Director for Appalachia Regional Planning Council, a hard act to follow. I would say you've got a lot of substance there, Chris, to given your presentation. I'm really glad you're here to give an update to the board. I've been on the board now for about a year and a half, and I think that the Regional Planning Council has come an exceptionally long way under Chris's leadership, and I'm excited that he's here with us today. So, thank you.
Chris?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you, Commissioner Dozier. I obviously have been invited here to give you a little overview of what the Regional Planning Council is. Just my luck, I get to follow the national champs. So I'm sure everyone is really excited to hear about regional planning. So I'll do my best to kind of make this interesting because we do a lot of interesting work. I've got a limited amount of time, so I'm going to try to keep it short and sweet, but I will, based on the amount of work that we do, cover a lot. So I'll be happy to answer questions at any time. So as Commissioner Dozier mentioned, I'm the Executive Director of the Appalachia Regional Planning Council. We're a 9-county multi-purpose organization that serves counties from Jefferson County on our east through Leon, Jackson, Calhoun, and Gulf on the west. And when we were created, it was this multi-purpose organization designed to focus on regionally shared issues. So we focus on economic development, emergency preparedness, transportation, and quality of life. There are 10 regional planning councils in the state. So we have statewide coverage, and we were established in 1977. We just turned 41 back in August. So the council is really an association of local governments. It's made up of local elected officials from the region, including gubernatorial appointees. So we have kind of a mixture of private sector and public sector that make up the board, and then we have the staff. Staff is myself and 7 employees, and we pretty much do whatever we can for our local governments in the areas of local technical assistance covering the focus areas I mentioned before. So our funding comes from a combination of different areas. First and foremost, it's the county dues. That's local match that we receive that we then use as leverage to bring in additional grants and funding. We're designated by the feds as an economic development district for the region. We use some of those dues dollars to pay for an economic development planner to provide economic development assistance across the region. We also receive some support from the grants and contracts that we receive. So our budget overall is about $850,000, and there's a huge return on investment throughout the region with those funds. So we thank you for your dues contribution every year. Just wanted to go over some recent activities that directly or indirectly impact Leon County to kind of tell you what it is we're doing for you, what services we're providing. And I'm going to break them out in some of those focus areas that I talked about before. Is economic development. Again, the main area that we're doing, again, is technical assistance on the economic development side. We're not going out and bringing in and recruiting businesses for Leon County, but we're providing economic modeling. We provide a comprehensive economic development strategy, more planning assistance to support those entities that are already out there doing this. So we recently revised and updated our economic development strategy, and the Office of Economic Vitality was critical in helping us with that. We're now we have a plan now that we implement that is in sync with all the other economic development organizations in the region. We recently received a $300,000 EPA Brownfields Assessment Grant that we're using throughout the region for assessing properties that could potentially have contamination, that with an assessment, we might be able to turn those properties back over and redevelop them for economic development. Obviously, Leon County is very familiar with the Brownfields program. We also completed last year what's called the Gulf to Gadsden Freight Logistics Zone, a study and designation. This was a project that we worked with Gulf County, Gadsden, Liberty, and Franklin as the port of Port St. Joe comes back online. Because when the port comes back online, Leon County will see an economic impact from that. So that was a project that we were real proud of and happy to work on, and we're still trying to move forward to implement that study and plan. Emergency preparedness is a big part of what we do for the region. Leon County is a recipient from a lot of the training that we provide. We receive some federal funds that we then we provide hazardous materials training to the first responders in Leon County and City of Tallahassee. At last count, we were over 2,000 student hours of hazmat training for Leon County, Tallahassee, and this is training that these first responders use and need, and it's money that you don't have to pay for that training. We also, last year, for Hurricane Irma, we helped with staff coordination of the Big Bend community organizations active in disaster during the response. And that's something that's not a service that Leon County no longer needs, but that was something that we were very happy to assist when we did have that opportunity. We're also working currently with Tallahassee GIS and the planning departments and Leon County Emergency Management to provide an update to the post-disaster redevelopment plan, the PDRP. That was something that came out of the Hurricane Irma after action report, and we're hoping to have that update completed by October. And lastly, under emergency preparedness, we're also working with Leon County, well, it's Department of Health for Leon County is the new name, but it's a full-scale exercise for points of dispensing, and this would be if there was a large-scale medical event like swine flu where you've got to push out a large amount of medications to a large amount of people, you set up what's called a pod, points of dispensing. So that's an exercise that we'll be doing for you all in October. Quality of place. Every year we help Leon County with their hazards analysis, and this is a requirement by the state where you've got facilities out there that have hazardous materials on site, chemicals that are dangerous, that if there was a release, it would be very dangerous to the residential neighborhoods and surrounding businesses. So we actually go out there, do a quick visit, we take that information, we put it into a database, we do some modeling with that information, and essentially what it comes down to is you're trying to arm first responders with information that if there was a fire there or a release, they have the most up-to-date and accurate information. And most recently we became, let me skip back. So on the quality of place, another area that we provide services, that's where the hazards analysis comes in, because that's, there's one other project I wanted to, here we go. Big Bend Continuum of Care, Big Bend COC, is another area for quality of life a service that we've started to help out with, and it was actually, big credit goes to Commissioner Dozier. They needed assistance for being housed with another agency that could provide administrative services, and with her cooperation and the Big Bend COC's cooperation, we were able to absorb that organization. So we now, federal dollars come through the Appalachian Regional Planning Council down to the COC. We provide payroll and admin services for them. So and obviously they provide services for Leon County. We also, through our work with the Capital Regional Transportation Planning Agency, the CRTPA, have now started to provide transportation disadvantage planning services for Leon County. And we now do that for all 9 counties within our region. Some other projects of regional significance that I wanted to mention while I have the chance is we recently received some funding from DEP, their Florida Resilient Coastlines program, to complete a sea level rise vulnerability assessment for Gulf Franklin and the city of Carabel. And we're also hoping to be awarded some funding soon for our regional GIS database. Besides Leon County, the majority of our region is rural. They're not blessed with the staff and resources that some of the more urbanized counties have. So we at the council and with staff try to provide support to those rural counties. So this GIS database would basically house all of their future land use maps, which we would digitize, and then their citizens and their professional staff would be able to access those. And as changes are made to those future land use maps, we would make those changes and update it to the system. And we would tie that in, obviously, with TLC GIS. And lastly, we are working with the North Florida Regional Domestic Security Task Force, which is an agency or an entity set up by the governor after 9/11 to help with domestic security. And we've, for the last 7, 8, 9 years, have done their full-scale exercises for the region. If you remember the one at the Capitol crisis, and we've done one at the Mag Lab, Deep Freeze, they're looking for a series. They're wanting a couple of full-scale exercises across their 13-county region for active shooters, school incidents. So we'll be working with them over the next couple of years to develop that. With that, that's a quick recap I know it was a lot of information in a short amount of time. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Commissioner Dozier?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chris, I don't envy you your position today. I mean, going from the excitement with softball, they've also got a single focus, and I think the nature of the Regional Planning Council right now is that it's so multifaceted. Everyone's got questions about what we do. What is it, 40-something statutes that relate to, that give direction to regional planning councils are still in the books, is that right?
Correct.
So I think, Mr. Chair, from my experience in the past, planning councils we know have changed a lot from more land use, regional developments of regional impact, things like that. And what I've seen, particularly under Chris's leadership, one of the reasons why I really wanted the board is he took an organization that was in the red, turned it around, little participation, and our meetings have representation from all 9 counties. We're meeting in Quincy at the IFAS Extension Office, which is great. And there feels like there's more regional collaboration than we've ever seen before. The CEDS report, the Economic Development Report that he mentioned, having a new version of that makes us eligible for EDA grants, more eligible throughout the region, for example. So what they're doing is like the nuts and bolts that makes a lot of other things work. So I'm excited about that. And Ms. County Administrator particularly wanted to thank our staff, whether it's Planning Department or OEV. There are members of our staff in the audience at every meeting that we have. And Chris, I guess one question I had for you, there's a lot of overlap. If it's the freight logistics zone and the foreign trade zone, those two things are going to have a lot of synergy if we get it done. But there's been one program, the revolving loan program, that's helping small businesses. As we talk about what OEV can and might do in the future, can you just highlight like one business that we've helped with that program? I know we need more funds for it, but it is now, available in Leon County, which it wasn't before.
So, yeah, that's in all the notes that I wrote down. I forgot to mention the revolving loan fund, so
You knew
thanks
I
for
was
bringing that up. That is one of our most popular programs. And just to give you a little context, it was federal funding that we received back in 1984, and it's essentially some funding that allows a business that wants to start up or expand. It's all based on job creation. We can lend a business funding if we have it. And I should mention our portfolio is about a little over $500,000. It allows businesses that have been turned down from traditional lending, commercial lending, so we're not competing with the private sector, but they're just below the threshold. And if you're a small business owner, you realize how hard it is to get your hands on capital, even if you have a spotless record. So if you've had a blemish on your credit history and you're trying to get lending, and this is all for creation of jobs, and you can't get that lending, this is a program that can help you. We don't market it. We never have. Most of our customers come through word of mouth through our board. And for years, when it first started, Leon County was not eligible because they're an urban county and it was meant for rural counties. But they've recently gone through some changes at EDA and they've opened it up a little bit more. So we revised our policy and our loan plan that was just updated, I think, about 2 years ago. Now Leon County is now eligible. But the hard part is we're still trying to find, and we've been working with local banks, working with OEV to see how we could expand that capital, because we know there are entrepreneurs out there that need access to capital. And this program, Commissioner Dozier sits on our executive committee, and they serve as the loan committee. So we bring these small business owners in. We look at their business plan. We have to collateralize the loan. And this program has been extremely successful. We have for example, you'd asked for an example of one small business. We had a retail shop in the city of Blountstown, which is in Calhoun County, which is an hour west of here. Normally, retail is very risky, and we typically step away from that. This business has done so well. They have brought in, and they sell jewelry. So this was a teacher that had kind of a clientele with this clothing and handcrafted jewelry she was kind of doing on the side. She retired from teaching, wanted to open up a little storefront. We were pretty hesitant on moving forward with this. She has defied all the odds, and it was because of this loan program that now she's just opened up a second location in Thomasville. So we have countless success stories on the revolving loan fund program, and it's one that we'd like to focus on if we could expand that capital. And we're hoping, we've applied for some funds through the USDA that we could expand it by at least another 125, but we know we could assign a full-time person to this with the number of entrepreneurs in Leon County and throughout the region if we did this the right way. So.
Thank you, Chris. Mr. Chair, last comment on this, that this program just has really inspired me in the last year and a half. I mean, the personal attention, Janice and Chris's office works hand in glove with these business owners. I remember one, it's not just the job creation, but there was a child care center in Gaston County. A couple decided to run that. They couldn't get a bank loan for this. They were so successful that a retiring couple, I think I have the story right, decided after a few years that they were the right people to take over their business as well. So now they have 2 branches. So these are good business owners providing services we need in our surrounding counties that people who work here in Leon need. So I just wanted to highlight that because I think it could dovetail into things that we think about with OEV now or in the future. So thank you, Chris. Chris and his staff also run the Florida Regional Planning Council Association, which is the booklet you have on your desk, and I serve on that board as well. So thank you very much for being here. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Proctor?
Thank you, Chairman. Chris, thank you for a report. You mentioned that we would actually be impacted by the improvements of St. Joe, Port St. Joe. Some years ago, we received a report as to the train connectivity, and that plans were underway to make sure that when the port was I guess dredged, is that the word you used, to dig it out a little deeper?
Correct.
When that occurred, then the train tracks and all was being made that you could get stuff out. What is the status of that? We were about 3 or 4 years ago when we were, I think it was around about that time that we heard this.
It's taking a lot longer than expected. They do hold permits from DEP to dredge for a true deep water port. They're still trying to find there's a gap in funding. It's going to cost a lot more to dredge than they originally anticipated. The legislature allocated some funding to do that. They needed to kind of find the remaining funds. So they're hoping the BP oil funds through the Restore and the Triumph dollars would close that gap. They've kind of run into some obstacles that they're trying to work through. That's the main holdup on the development of the deep water portion of the port. In the meantime, Eastern Shipbuilding, if you recall, there's a $1.2 billion contract that was landed for providing services to build Coast Guard cutters, and they're actually going to be using the Port of Panama City is the main port for that, but they don't have enough space, so they're actually, Eastern Shipbuilding owns some land adjacent to the Port of Port St. Joe, so they're going to actually expand their operations along the port, and we think that's really going to jumpstart the process.
What about
having the customer using the port really was kind of the missing link to really knock the first domino down.
Has the train commitment?
So when I had mentioned the freight logistics zone, that was kind of this idea that you've got the port, you've got the old rail line that runs through Gulf County, Franklin, Gadsden, through Liberty and up to Gadsden. We designated this area of rail along those 4 counties as a freight logistics zone in order to entice economic development along the rail line. And then with the hope of maybe in Gadsden County getting an intermodal logistics zone or center, ILC, which would be, so the ship pulls up, all the freight is offloaded and it moves to the ILC, and then from the ILC it can then be transported to I-10 or the rest of the road network. So
has St. Joe maintained commitment, or has St. Joe Corporation more or less decommitted from projections that they had made for the area several years ago? I have not heard any noise being made by that company.
The rail line is privately owned. It's Genesee, Wyoming. Port of Port St. Joe, the Port St. Joe company is really out of it at this point. It's the Port Authority that's running it in the city of Port St. Joe.
Okay.
City of Port St. Joe.
Okay. My last question, Chris, is are there 9 other counties in America that have more fresh water beneath them?
That's a good question. I can't answer it accurately, but I will say that we're very fortunate in this region to have the amount of water and aquifer that we have here. So,
I say that to lift a point to our commission that for years now I feel that we have squandered opportunities to, Bob Ratcliffe would say, to get serious about the fresh water that we have collectively. And while I did not hear you make a standalone comment about the fresh water, but it likely is the thing that will make this area wealthy 50, 60, 70 years from now.
Or
I think it's
less than
something
that.
we should pay attention to. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
We'll move now to our consent agenda. Mr. Administrator, anything for approval of consent?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, we have one item pulled. That's item 10, pulled by Commissioner Daley.
The remainder of consent has been moved by Commissioner Deloge, seconded by Commissioner Dozier. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. We'll move now to item number 10. Mr. Administrator?
Commissioners, item 10 seeks your approval of a bid award to Ketchum Realty for the provision of residential real estate services. As we indicate in the item, this was competitively bid, and the winning bidder is before you as a recommendation, and we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
Commissioner Daley?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I pulled the item because, as you know, I've had a professional relationship with Ketchum Realty Group over the years. I ended that professional relationship back in April, but in abundance of caution, I wanted to go ahead and propose on the record, Mr. Attorney, do I have a conflict of interest? Is there a time certain after we end professional relationships versus voting? Do I have an obligation to vote, or do I have an obligation to recuse myself on this issue?
In my opinion, you have no voting conflict.
Okay. All righty. Thank you.
Motion to approve has been moved. Option number 1 has been moved by Commissioner Lindley, seconded by Commissioner Deloge. All those in favor of the motion on the floor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Move now to citizens to be heard. Any citizens' cards?
We have no cards.
Move now to general business. Mr. Administrator, item number 15.
Commissioners, Mr. Chairman, this item seeks the board acceptance of an additional $750,000 from DEP for Springs Protection Grant for advanced passive on-site sewage treatment and/or disposal systems. This is just more good news, Commissioners, that reflects our continuous work with DEP in the primary Springs Protection Zone. The installation of these systems will be at no cost to the county, as included in your item. And again, our efforts will be focused on the primary Springs Protection Zone. We are happy to answer any questions that you might have. I have no speakers on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Administrator. I feel the only right to give Commissioner Proctor the chance to speak and to make the motion.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Commissioners, options 1 and 2 seem like palatable options, and I would move those for our acceptance.
Option 1 and 2 has been moved by Commissioner Proctor, seconded by Commissioner Lindley.
I'd like to comment on that.
Yes, sir.
Commissioners, I'm really pleased and want to thank staff for the dexterity of their thought and quickness to close the gap. We recognize the transition from North Water Florida Management District to DEP with this project. I'm not sure what the dynamics are there, but nevertheless, grateful for this kind of pairing. Over the years, I have indicated that Leon County should actually exalt in a number of pilot programs such as this one. Please note that this is at no cost to Leon County. It just simply makes sense because of our proximity to the state apparatus of government that pilot projects such as this occur. DEP is in Leon County. These other units are in Leon County. And the state should really foster a lot of these efforts to create models by which you take these things in Central Florida and other parts of the state. It plain makes sense. And I'm hopeful that the next governor of our state, a change of leadership in our state, that there will be a viewpoint consistent with this quest for partnering. We look at it some years ago. I saw, for instance, the Florida Department of Education, which has a number of D and F schools less than a mile from it, to create new pilot programs. And the second reason that you would do pilot programs in Tallahassee is that we have a per capita intelligentsia second to nobody in the state of Florida. We got these universities, we got these PhDs, we got this mag lab, all these brainy people to be the United States 12th most literate in America. And so why wouldn't the state create and foster pilot programs, you have an intelligentsia base that makes sense. So for our staff's pursuit of this money, which is badly needed for the area of Woodville area, the Wakulla Springs Basin area, that would not be cost to the resident at this time. And that's always been a conflict, that as we seek to upgrade sewer and to bring all of our residents into the 21st century, it's been the burden, whether we place it, will government bear it, will the state of Florida bear it, will the Springs bear it, will the people who we're asking to participate bear it. And I think that as we inch along with the $750,000 grant, that we be mindful, Ms. County Administrator, of additional push for the state to do more as we complete and get to a midpoint, and then the back end of completely protecting that area from, and I hope that Commissioner Dozier recognizes this point, because Lake Lafayette, for instance, we talked some time back about what the state could do, buying protected sensitive areas, but we're the laboratory, and this ought to be more of this, and I'm hopeful that we will all be sensitive to this, and with the change of government across the street, whoever the government is, I think that Leon County ought to be the pilot leader in the state of Florida with almost every agency that's in town. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Motion made by Commissioner Proctor, seconded by Commissioner Lindley for options number 1 and 2, which is staff recommendation. All those in favor of the motion on the floor indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Move to item number 16. Mr. Administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, this item seeks authorization from the board to purchase land adjacent to Coe Landing Park. The availability of this property came to staff's attention when it was listed publicly. The total price is under $150,000. It will help us, well, it represents, we believe, a great investment in the future, as well as the ability to address some immediate issues that we have at Coe Landing. And with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Commissioner Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'm excited about this as the commissioner that represents this particular area. Coe Landing has been an overcrowded site for several years now. Of the, I think of the 3 county-owned and operated sites, Coe Landing is the highest usage, and normally parking is in short supply. And this allows us the opportunity to expand parking as well as the campground to, I think, 10 additional spaces that will be updated to the new standards that RVs as well as equestrian activities that occur at the track that's immediately west of there, and that's located within the Talcott State Forest. So I'm excited about it, and I'm really excited about the price. I don't know how Vince got that, and if I'd known and seen it earlier, maybe I could have gotten in on the beginning of it. But I'm excited to get it for that type of price with lake frontage. It's a very valuable piece of property, and I can see it being real meaningful to that area.
Motion made by the Vice Chair. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Deloge. Commissioner Proctor.
Chairman, who we purchasing the property from? Who's selling it?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, this is listed privately. It's a private landowner in Leon County. I don't have that specific information, but it's listed with a realtor locally, and this was, as I mentioned, just heads-up staff work to identify it once it hit the residential listings.
I just think, Commissioners, I like, in times like these, to know who we're purchasing from. I think that should be disclosed. I don't know who it is, but I trust that our staff has vetted this, and it's an advantage to the public and to the County of Leon. But in the future, I'm asking that we know, is this from Russia? Who's selling it?
Thank you, Commissioner Proctor. I think you have a very valid point, Mr. Administrator. Can you make sure either before the end of the meeting or by tomorrow that we know who exactly we purchased that land from? Motion on the floor is by Vice Chair Jackson, seconded by Commissioner Deloge. All those in favor of the motion on the floor indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Item number 17.
Thank Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, this item seeks full board appointments to the LCRDA Board of Governors. You have 4 appointments, the eligible, well, actually, the recommendations of which are provided here for your consideration.
Is there a motion for staff recommendation? Yes, ma'am, Commissioner Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will move staff recommendation, option 1 and 2.
Staff recommendations, options 1 and 2 has been moved. 1A through C and 2 has been
sorry.
moved by Commissioner
Yes.
Dozier. Is there a second to that motion? Seconded by Commissioner Lindley. Commissioner Dozier, you have the floor.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to recognize Ron Miller, Executive Director, LCRDA, who's in the audience with us today. I'm sure he's here if you have any questions. We've been making tremendous progress at Innovation Park. I hope you will get a more robust update on those activities sometime soon. Mr. County Administrator, I also wanted to thank you and the other members of the nominating committee. Ray Bai has 3 of these appointments are reappointments to the board, and we're very excited about that. But Ray Bai is coming back to the board after a long absence. He served the board, I believe, in the 90s and maybe again early 2000s. So we're really excited about Ray rejoining the board with his knowledge and experience from FSU. So thank you.
Thank you. Staff recommendation has been moved by Commissioner Dozier, seconded by Commissioner Lindley. All those in favor of the motion, indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. We'll go now to item number 18.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, this item seeks full board appointment to the Leon County Educational Facilities Authority, and the eligible candidates in this case are here for your consideration.
Commissioner Lowe's.
Mr. Chair, Anthony Miller has applied and has actively pursued the application. He's met with the current executive director. He's met with a number of the board members independently. He met with me. I think he'd make a great candidate for the board, and they're making a lot of positive changes, so I'd suggest that we appoint him, and I'd make that motion.
Motion's been made to appoint Anthony Miller to the EFA. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Commissioner Lindley. All those in favor of the motion on the floor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on now to, we have any citizens cards?
We have no citizens to be heard.
Did you find that information?
No.
Okay. We'll move now to Commissioner comment time. Mr. Turner?
Mr. Chairman, I have one item for your consideration. You should have received a memorandum from me dated August 23rd. It deals with the Falls Chase Property Owners Association, who have admittedly not done anything with regard to their requirements for maintenance of the roadway system. It has become a safety hazard, and our Public Works Department has twice now gone out and done the maintenance, the trimming and the mowing that was necessary. So the memorandum is seeking your approval of our office pursuing a lawsuit against the Falls Chase Property Owners Association, seeking, 1, the reimbursement of the monies that we've expended for the maintenance to date, and 2, to get a court directive, if you would, injunction that mandates that they take over the maintenance responsibility that they should be doing anyhow.
You need a motion for that?
Yes.
Motion been made by Commissioner Lowe, seconded by Commissioner Dozier. Commissioner Dozier?
I'm sorry. Am I in second in queue? Oh, you just cleared it out.
I think that was last time.
All right. Mr. Chair, yes, I just wanted to take the moment to thank County Administrator and County Attorney, your teams, for jumping in and working on this issue so quickly. The Buck Lake Alliance, robust, active organization that has worked with county for many, many years on the Falls Chase property and other things. I saw a series of emails as they were trying to get some attention to this issue, the lack of maintenance, and our staff jumped in really quick, started, Public Works took over the maintenance, and the neighbors have been thrilled with that. So just wanted, it's more than just the legal action. Our staff really did take a hold of this problem and address it even before we could get to this step. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Commissioner Dozier. Any more comment? Seeing none, we'll move to the vote. Motion's been made for the attorney's recommendation by Commissioner Deloge, seconded by Commissioner Dozier. All those in favor of the motion on the floor indicate by saying aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 6-1. We move now to, Mr. Attorney, you have anything else?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, I just wanted to provide a brief update to you. If I'll ask Kevin to make his way up. Commissioners, I know from our correspondence over the weekend, I know Commissioners, many of you were keeping close tabs on the storm developing in the Gulf. And our team was certainly working, closely monitoring the situation and coordinating appropriately. But as the storm and the system still develops in the Gulf, although it looks like we may have dodged this one for the most part, I did want to ask Kevin to come up and just provide you all with a brief report. And with that, Kevin?
Thank you, Mr. Administrator. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you for the time this afternoon. The latest on Tropical Storm Gordon, the storm we've been watching, it's now at 65 miles an hour, moving to the northwest at 15 miles per hour. That's a pretty good forward speed for a tropical system. We're expecting a Category 1 possible hurricane this evening with a landfall on the Mississippi coast tonight. As the Administrator said, we've dodged a bullet on this one. Most of the rain shield associated with this is west of our county. We will receive some rain this afternoon. It's not directly associated with Gordon, but the general east to west flow is bringing storms that are developing, coming basically off the Atlantic coast. We'll bring them through our area. So we're not rain free, but we are tropical system free. With that, the 7-day outlook puts us about quarter of an inch to an inch and a half of rainfall over the next 7 days on average. Of course, as we've seen all summer, areas of town can get higher amounts on any given day. The rain rates could fall at a very high rate over a short period of time. That is typical for summertime in the state of Florida, pretty much any coastal community in the southeast. Just to go real quick on a stat on the rainfall, since January 1, we're at 7.18 inches above average for this year. That's according to the National Weather Service. Year to date, we've accumulated 51.65 inches of rain. So far in September, we're a quarter of an inch above, but we're only 3 days into it. So I'll tell you about August. The total for August was 11.48 inches of rain, and that put us about 4.13 inches above average for the month of August. So we are ahead by 7.18 inches. So we will always, pretty much through the remainder of this summer and into the fall, working with our friends at Public Works, keeping a close watch on any future rainfall forecasts, staying on top of that. Currently, there are two other items of interest in the Atlantic. We do have Hurricane Florence, which is in the central Atlantic. It's Category 1. It's drifting north into the central Atlantic. We expect it to stay in that area, stay well east of Bermuda, and not be an effect to the United States. Further out, a tropical wave coming off the coast of Africa right now. You may see it on the Weather Channel as Invest 92. Currently, some of the initial modeling on this has it approaching the Windward Islands down in the tropical Atlantic somewhere in 7 to 12 days, increasing in strength, possibly to a tropical storm. We've got plenty of time to watch that. But we are in September. It's the peak of hurricane season. We're going to see activity increase as these waves come off the African coast. We may see things pop in the central Atlantic. So we will have to continue to monitor it as we've been doing. Hurricane season, as a reminder, runs through November 30th, so we do have a couple more months to keep our vigilance up on the tropics. And we're doing all we can to be ready. We heard from Chris earlier some of the planning that's going on. Obviously, we're doing our internal planning with our emergency management plan, our hurricane response plans. We're working with Chris and his team on some of these other emergency and hazard plans. So our planning is ongoing, continually monitoring the tropics and other weather systems. And we have ongoing training for our emergency management staff and our other county staff partners that help out at the EOC. We do have incident command training in September that we have a fair number of staff signed up for, as well as an emergency operations center operations course in October. And that's the update as of now, Mr. Administrator.
Mr. Administrator?
Just, Mr. Chairman, if there are any questions while Kevin's here, we'd be happy to answer those.
Mr. Proctor?
Kevin, did you say that we were 7 inches above norm?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I noticed while we were on break, Commissioners, that DEP had some enforcement concerns with the canopy development. And prior to that, on the canopy development, this is not related to the storm. What this relates to is the amount of rain which has occurred this year. The city had indicated that that pond out there, Vince, which we thought was, they had dug the thing up too deep, and seemed like they were in violation of something because it was too deep. And with the water coming, the water spilled off the property and went other places. And it seems that engineers have miscalculated how much holding pond is needed on that site. And here we are in a real rainy year. The thing ain't too deep, it ain't deep enough. And it appears that from the velocity of waters that have come, nobody got flooded, but I was stunned that DEP would talk about shutting down a project in Leon County, and I inquired with the county attorney's office as to the legitimacy of DEP to shut down and cause men to be laid off and women to be injured by shutting this project down over some rainwater. And I think that, and I'm not sure where this issue is right now, but if jobs are going to be shut down, growth and development is going to come to a standstill. I think the county, if we can file a lawsuit over some grass that's growing up on some roads out there in Falls Chase, if we're willing to go to court and file a lawsuit over some growing grass, I'm willing to file a lawsuit that the state not shut down a project and indefinitely, and workers lose their jobs over water. I think that there ought to be a way that, since we had something to do with approving this canopy, that we look into this whole water issue. And I think that it forces us to get the engineers into the back at the table. And obviously, nobody's side has calibrated the whole contemplation of the amount of rainwater that we have had this year. It's just off the charts. And I think that as opposed to it being a developer's fault, it may not even be the city's fault. They thought the pond should be shallower and less pond. Rain comes and it needs to be greater pond. Something needs to occur, but it does not need to be shutting down the jobs of the people who are out there trying to develop an area which we have approved, the city have approved. And there's enough algae and red tide in Florida that DEP has a lot of issues that they could focus on than some water running down the hill off Canopy. So I heard the issue, and I appreciate you bringing Chris forward, Vince, to talk about the storm. There's a different storm that when DEP is creating a storm that will shut people's paychecks down over water. And I think that it behooves our county to get involved. Herb, I don't know if in my asking of you, if you saw a basis or a segue to get us involved in something, to me, more substantial than grass growing on the Falls Chase Road. This right here is something we need to get involved with. And may I ask, Mr. Chairman, the county attorney, his thoughts on my thoughts.
Mr. Attorney?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner, we would likely have no standing to participate. It is a city-regulated project in the municipal limits, and the permits that are being contested are those by the Northwest Florida Water Management District and the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. We have no say-so in those permits or the consequences of not complying with those permits. We certainly could seek more information, but I don't see us having a role, if you would, in that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Attorney. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just very, I'm grieved by the threat of DEP. They have a lot to do in Florida right now, a whole lot. Red tide is a lot. Algae is a lot. but to cut off people's jobs over some water that obviously the city didn't get right and the permitting folk did not get right makes no sense. And I can't believe that they want to injure our economy and hurt the people over this water issue. And it's nothing that nobody can do anything about. I mean, I don't know what the perfect amount of falling water is for our area, but who knows what the perfect, whatever comes down, we have to accept that. So this punishment issue in stopping a construction project doesn't make sense. Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners.
Commissioner Dozier?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to take a moment to thank Kevin, your team, Mr. County Administrator, your team. We know that there's been a lot of activity in recent months since we kicked off hurricane season, and that you probably had a busy weekend. I saw a few Facebook posts remembering where we've been in past years, around the past 2 years around this time, and people really feeling thankful that the storm took a westward turn, likely, thinking about our neighbors over there. But there was also a sense this weekend that we were ready. When the sandbag location was announced, I heard a lot of good compliments about that we were getting ahead of it. So just wanted to take the moment, Mr. Chair, to thank you all for getting ready. Even if the storm doesn't come, it's important. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Administrator. All right, Commissioners, for the record, the piece of land that we purchased for Cole Landing was owned by Dorothy Jean Sickinger, her living trust. They're from Dayton, Ohio. I think her children may have lived there. Ma'am? No, not at all. Ms. Voss, make sure that makes it into the record. Thanks, staff, for getting us that information. We'll go now with Commissioner Lindley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Glad to be back at work. Although this meeting is rather light, so I'm glad of that too, I guess. I just wanted to say a word about Kay Homeister while we were on break. We got the announcement that she will be retiring from directing our wonderful Leon County Public Library. And as happy as I might be for you, I really will miss you a great deal. You've been just magnificent. And seeing the public library through all the transitions that we know libraries are going through now, from the technology and its social services kind of aspect too, of a gathering place. So I just want to say thank you. I know we'll probably do something more official later on. It's the end of the year, I think. But so glad to have you in command these last several years. So I appreciate it. That's all I have, really. Just want to kudos for Kay.
Thank you, Kay. Commissioner Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Lindley, you pretty much summed up an email I sent to the county administrator after hearing about Kay's retirement as well. Excited for your next adventure. There you are. See, Scott shifted now. That's great. We've got you, Kay. Excited for your next adventure, but you have had an incredible impact on the county. I know we will have a lot of time to celebrate your support for this county and what you've done for everyone in the future, but thank you. And thank you, Commissioner Lindley, for bringing that up. I also want to thank just the phenomenal team. I'm not even going to try to understand how many different departments played a role in the day of service, but I know Volunteer Leon played a big role. So, Mr. County Administrator, to everyone who played a role or worked out there, it was another fabulous day of service. Commissioner Jackson, we were out there early, and I might have gotten a little more paint on me than you did, but that does not say that you weren't working very hard. I love being able to work side by side with you all, but the organization is really something to celebrate. And the neighbors there, I think there was a real significant and genuine appreciation for what we did to help in their community. And Commissioner Jackson, I will leave it to you, but I think your comments about the school children were particularly significant and stood out to me. So thank you for sharing those thoughts at the day. and just really enjoyed it. So, Mr. Chair, the last thing here is just a proclamation request, our annual Breast Cancer Awareness Month proclamation to be given on the 24th.
Is there a second? Second. Any objection? Motion carries with Commissioner Dozier making a motion and Commissioner Lindley seconding.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to the Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, again, I think you were just covering more ground when you were painting. I actually, well, I mean, on the wall, on the actual, and some of the clothing. But yeah, it was a lot of fun to be out there with the residents and all of the county folks that came out and volunteered. Just and it's amazing to see the effort that happens and the transformation that can happen in that neighborhood in just a few hours. And I know that's attributed to all the folks that organized it, but it's especially attributed to the people that show up and early and stay late to get it all looking kind of beautiful for the kids and the residents in the neighborhood there. And again, today's proclamation for the ladies softball team, that you get to do some good stuff in this job, and you get to recognize some neat people in Leon County and Tallahassee, and I really enjoyed that. Again, Coach Alameda kind of walks the walk and doesn't just talk the talk with her kids. She has them involved in all sorts of community services all across Leon County, and what a honor to have them here and recognize them today.
Thank you, Chairman. Commissioners, I didn't want to get into anything too serious today because I know that we didn't want to do that. I was looking at the administrator's memo to us on the 27th, and I guess it was a synopsis of the budget item that we're going to adopt on number 19. And as you all know, from his comments to us, we're probably going to come out about $5 million, possibly short, based upon if this homestead exemption goes into effect, which would take possibly $1 billion worth of accessible value away from us. I'm pondering and asking your consideration too, Commissioners, to, it's just plain time for us to pursue a payment in lieu of when the state capital county suffers the loss of taxable value as we do. And then we are to sustain the same hit across the board, and we're without the value because of the state's presence, the federal presence of our lands. I just think that it is not premature for us to begin to pursue the state actually funding this loss of revenue for us. They occupy so much of our land, and we will take another hit of no particular, nothing of our own volition. And I think that in next year's legislative efforts, and hopefully we will have a governor in place whose understanding is keen enough, familiar enough, that we would pursue a state offset for the loss of property that we don't have, which is taxable. And in particular, we take a hit like this, which the legislature dangle this political pork chop in front of voters, which they likely will accede to approving. I just throw it out there. I hope this commission desires to move forward to seek a payment in lieu of or some compensation from the state for this county in particular, because we are the state's seat of government. Secondly, I'd like to congratulate Commissioner John Daly for... Don't do it. Well, I'll pull up right there. And I'm going to pull up, but you saw which way the wind was blowing. And Brad Daly represented us, y'all. He represented. And I want to commend him for a great race and all those things. Y'all know I'm going to be in the race this time, so we ought to add a little more to it and stuff like that. And I'm excited. You know, I like stuff like, you know, campaigning. I like that. We want to commend Rick Minor, our next colleague. Rick, we're looking forward to him giving the positive leadership for District 3, as has been rendered by Commissioner Daley for a few seasons. Commissioners, I wanted to also note that I have an interest in the United Way announced that theirs is a mission shift. And in announcing their mission shift, it's going to leave some organizations, some nonprofits, a few dollars short. I know that we're also looking at the adjustment that staff has given us in this August 27th memo. But y'all, we cannot drop the ball and let these nonprofits fall to the ground. I think that we need to take a focused look since the do-goody support system will be with the county and with the city. We don't have a United Way that's going to be in the way of providing. The way in which the United Way is about to lead is to a diminished support base for our nonprofits. And I think that we owe it to take a careful look at the impacts and what we can do to offset those impacts and to assume some of the burden for providing for the health, safety, and welfare of citizens of Leon County. We can't let it crash. And so, Mr. Chairman, I'm sort of asking for sort of a review, if it's known, of what United Way is really about to kill, and if we can save anybody as a result of that. So I wanted to throw that out there and put it on the table, and because that's really concrete and tangible stuff, this announcement is going to impact. So I'd like to ask our commissions for a little feedback, if they have any, and their thoughts before sharing my last issue for this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, as you all know, speaking to what Commissioner Proctor raises, each year we bring to you the recommendations from the CHSP process. As Commissioner Proctor duly noted, we conducted the process this year without the United Way, but between the city and the county. Again, those recommendations come to you. They'll be coming to you at the next commission meeting. Those approvals, of course, are tentative, and they and upon your approval, they will provide an analysis too that provides the information that Commissioner Proctor is asking for as well in terms of the overall impact to agencies. Absent a significant amount of money from the United Way, I'll just remind the board again, the city and county both provided, again, level funding this year, but the United Way was down pretty considerably. So as Commissioner Proctor notes, it will have an impact on agencies, but we do intend to bring you an item at your next meeting that'll provide all of that information.
Commissioner Proctor?
Well, that's very good. I did not know that staff was bringing that forward at our next meeting. That would be very timely. I'll be looking very carefully at that report, and I'm very sensitive to our response and what we can do and how wide of a net that we can cast to offset that mission shift. Finally, Commissioners, was very excited to note that in the community of Valdosta, Georgia, that during our vacation, that Valdosta, Georgia, adopted the naming of a street, Barack Obama Boulevard. And I mean, not that things like that can't happen in Valdosta, Georgia, but that something like that happened in Valdosta, Georgia, before it could occur in Leon County, was unsettling. While we were on break, may I also note, Commissioners, that in a community of Gaston County, they adopted a street called Barack Obama Boulevard. And though I was very, very happy that that could occur so close to the state's capital, I would be happier if it could happen in the state's capital. And I've noted before to this body, and would like to do so tonight, to propose the renaming of Orange Avenue to Barack Obama Boulevard, stretching from Orange Avenue at Capitol Circle on the southeast side, right in front of Southwood, and going the spans up to past the golf course of Orange Avenue, where it runs into Highway 20. And I believe that Barack Obama, not that Orange is not a good name because Florida and Orange go together, I get that. But when I look at Adams Street, the name of an American president, and Monroe, the name of an American president, there is room for a contemporary name of an American president. And when you look at the communities of Appalachia Ridge, South City, FAMU, Shagata Park, NIM School, Bond School, Pine View, Liberty Ridge, Bethel AME Church, Tabernacle, Greater Love, Rickards High School, all of those things, all of those communities, all of those areas would be a lot prouder of Barack Obama Boulevard serving as the central nervous transportation system en route through all of those areas that feed into the current Orange Avenue. I bring this back after seeing what happened in Valdosta, that we could do that. It's not a big, huge undertaking, but it would be, and would add much more distinction to our area, along with Presidents Adams and Monroe. I seek and I move tonight that we adopt and seek the changes, whether it's from the state, the feds, or whoever has to approve it, but that we would adopt Barack Obama Boulevard for the name change at Orange Avenue is my motion.
I'll second for discussion. With the thought that, Commissioner Potter, when you made that motion originally a few months ago, I had a lot of questions about it. In particular, with it being a state road, I've never been a part of a street naming since I've been on this commission, and therefore never been a part of a street naming at all. What does it take? What does it mean? What I was able to find out is that half of Orange Avenue going from South Monroe back to the airport has already been deemed by the legislature through efforts of the late Hollinger as the C.K. Steele Highway. Though that does not change the name of Orange Avenue, there will be a sign going up acknowledging that that portion of Orange Avenue is C.K. Steele Highway. The portion going from South Monroe towards, for lack of a better landmark, I guess Southwood, has no naming. And as we all know, I think that road is split between being a state road. I think we have some of it. I think the city has some of it as well. And so it's a very complex issue, is not to mention I don't even know what or if or how much it will cost or what the costs are involved in renaming a road. So I'm willing to second the motion for conversation, for discussion. But Commissioner Proctor, I think that, and one of the things also when you made the motion the first time, I thought I get where he's coming from, where Orange runs through the central part of South City, but especially with that portion being C.K. Steele Highway, if we so decide to go in that direction, or if this motion passes, we bring it back for, actually I would recommend agenda item versus us just making a motion to rename right now. And I'll be willing to second an agenda item versus us just naming right now. But if we do that, do we go with the whole road? Do we go with half of it? How does that work? Do we look at other opportunities? Does it absolutely have to be Orange? So I'm not saying I'm not saying it's a done deal, but I did do my research while we were away, and that's what I was able to find. I do believe that, given the fact that the legislature has seen it a good thing to name that portion CK Steele Highway, we do have to give some consideration to the things that Reverend Steele has done here in Leon County for our citizens here in Leon County. And maybe if it comes down to it during that agenda item, look at naming half versus the whole, where one half being Barack Obama and the other half being CK Steele versus being the whole. So my second, if you'll have it, Commissioner Prater, is for us to bring back an agenda item looking at that naming of Orange, but to also include how it may affect what all the parameters are to renaming a road, how it might affect those addresses that are there now, the cost associated with it as well, and also the possibility or information pertaining to what the legislator did in naming CK Steele Highway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really appreciate your second, your support, and also to reference that Ronald Reagan name is on Appalachia Parkway. I'm not quite sure how it coexists, but we still call it Appalachia Parkway. But if I'm not mistaken,
I wasn't aware of that. I think they were attempting to rename Ronald Reagan Highway, but rename Appalachia Parkway, Ronald Reagan.
It was never officially put. Ronald Reagan name didn't get put on there.
I don't think so. They were looking to rename Appalachia Parkway Ronald Reagan Parkway, but that never happened.
Okay. Well, because Barack Obama should happen. I mean, I'm not all that affected that Ronald Reagan didn't, but Barack Obama's name absolutely should occur. That needs to happen. And the steps that, if Valdosta can make that happen, hell, we ought to be able to make that happen. If Quincy can make that happen, we ought to be able to make that happen. And I think that if petitions are needed, or if we need citizens from all of those neighborhoods to come down here to the chamber, that we can see the whites of their eyeballs, and we need to just see them blink or something, I think that can occur too. But what are the steps that are necessary to close the gap, make that happen, to commemorate our president in an area that would make, in a part of the community that would accept and be very proud of his name? We should find those steps and make it right, make it occur. Allow for history in this road to capture this important man in the lives of people, in particular Southside people. Thank you.
I have Commissioner Lindley and Commissioner Dozier in queue to speak. Commissioner Prater, before they speak, though, just real quick, I have no doubt that those folks in Valdosta and those folks, I believe you said Gaston County, are proud of that naming. But that's the way I like to do things. I like to know exactly what we're getting ourselves into when we do these things. I've never had the pleasure, honor of naming any road in Leon County. And this may be an education for me. I don't know if anybody else here has had that opportunity, but it's been an education for me to know what all goes into it. And that's why I'm more so comfortable doing an agenda item rather than just a straight naming. So I know every single thing that happens in this process. So that's my reasoning, and that's my move behind the second. Commissioner Lindley, then Commissioner Dozier.
Was that a substitute motion, yours? Yeah.
No, he made the motion. I believe it, Commissioner Prater, if I'm correct, the motion was for the agenda item. Come back with the things.
Okay.
Are you okay with the things I included? Thank you.
I like the idea in general, but I would like to have an agenda item that really does explain what naming any roads requires in our community. I just want to note that President Obama was the president of all the people, and so I don't really think that it needs to be necessarily a South City. I think there could be a lot of other roads that we might consider, other streets. So to me, it would just, I'd like an overview of how we go about naming and what our authority is. And I'd like to hear from the public if there are other streets or roads or avenues or boulevards. Many new ones are being built all the time that are significant that we might consider for this naming possibility. It sounds like Orange Avenue is going to be kind of complicated if you have it. I mean, we already have roads around here that have just little chunks of, West Tennessee and Mahan Drive and on and on. So I'd just like to expand it, I guess, to a little broader view and not just limit it to Orange Avenue.
I don't, if
So that's
If
just,
I misspoke, I think I was asking, that's kind of what I was asking for. I might have just asked, but I just want to know in general what that means. But then when we're also breaking it down, what it means specifically for Orange Avenue, but what it means in general, like what's the process in general? Because I just, again, I've never been a part. I was able to find out through my conversation with Delatry, who told me about the CK Steel portion, that the county, uniquely actually, I thought this was pretty interesting, that the county has naming rights on all roads, whether it's a state, city, or county road. So we name all the roads and nobody else has that authority but us. But, so I learned that, but I want to know more, so.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to, Commissioner Lindley's point, I recognize that some names may offend in some areas, but the reason I offered Orange Avenue is that the Barack Obama name, we want his name in my area. We honor his name. It will not offend the citizenry of the community. So yes, he does belong to all the people, but as well you know, often people don't embrace names as readily. I'm willing to go to the same extent that we went to name the library after Dr. B.L. Perry some years ago. And though Dr. Perry was the president of Florida A&M, and his name, I think, has good standing across the community, but I know he's especially loved in where we place his name. And I know that we would definitely embrace, and we got room, would make room. We want Barack Obama's name as a Southside name. If it has to go anywhere, we want it first.
Commissioner Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I'm a little confused about where the motion stands right now with the three parts, so I'm going to try for a substitute motion.
Go for it.
Substitute motion to bring back information and policy, whatever discussion we may have on road naming in general, particularly when it comes to individuals. And I would love to hear more within that same agenda item or separate from Mr. Hollinger. I think the designation for Orange Avenue is pretty significant. We're looking at signage and naming on the west end of Orange Avenue. County Administrator brought this up related to the Mag Lab and Innovation Park and the innovation or the new gateway. See, I'm already going to call it Innovation Parkway. So I think signage on that road would be very interesting. I think the significance of CK Steel Memorial Highway is very interesting. I don't know if that's the same agenda item or not, but I would like to, so I will take direction from County Administrator, from Chair, if you'd like to mix those two things up. But I'd like just an agenda item on naming issues related to roads, and particularly when it comes to naming after individuals.
That's the motion on the floor, I believe. But only caveat to it was the analysis of Orange Avenue. Besides what you said, I mean, it's just the analysis of Orange and
Yes,
Barack
sir.
Obama.
I get that. That's why I wouldn't mind having a discussion about the CK Steel Memorial Highway within that discussion of naming, and that could get us some information about Orange Avenue. But I have to say, on this issue particularly, politics aside, I think when we name roads after people, it should be for a universally significant achievement. Our first African-American president is universally significant to all Americans, from my perspective. I think recognizing that in the heart of the community would be of significance. It is a good thing for our whole community. So I appreciate, Commissioner Proctor, you bringing this up again. Mr. Chair, I appreciate your homework on this. Definitely that's helped. But I'd like to get into a bigger picture discussion about this when we have more time. So I didn't want it focused exclusively on Orange. But if we want to have a discussion about that, we can bring in the CK Steel information and other things.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I don't mind that, and we ought to have a big discussion. Today, I'm just into a little discussion about one person.
Yeah.
Can we chew bubblegum and walk? Can we do both simultaneously?
That was the agenda item on the table, was for everything that you covered.
I can withdraw it. I was just a little confused because...
I'm trying to take care of one thing today. I know universally, and I ain't talking about universals today. if he's that significant, and how we do this for other great significant people, but I'm just thinking about a little itty bitty idea, and if it's not subsumed or supplanted, then, sometimes we take a look at stuff and it's like sending an idea out to committee and it dies, and you can never exhume it. You can never call it from death. I'm not trying to kill the idea, and if the idea can come to fruition simultaneously with the universal look, so be it. It's just words on the paper. We're looking at read. I'm willing to read and learn the rules as we look simultaneously at the naming. If we can do both, the look is going to be at words on a sheet of paper. I can do that. I think we all can.
I don't think anybody's contesting that. I think we're trying to get the agenda item correct. I think everybody has what they want or what they would like to see. I think, if anything, it's an education for us all, because I don't think anybody, I don't even think you, Commissioner Pratt, has been part of a naming of a road. So to have an agenda item come back to look at the policy, I think you said it correct, Commissioner Dozier, and the policy that we have when it comes to road naming, and also to give us analysis on Orange being Barack Obama Boulevard, as well as the state's naming of C.K. Steele Highway and what that means for Orange as well, will be the agenda item that I think that pleases everybody's questions or whatever they want to know that day. Commissioner Pratt, that is your motion, correct? That is my second. I have no more commissioners in queue to speak. All those in favor of the motion on the floor indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Commissioner Pratt, you have the table.
Thank you very much for commissioners for our looking at this particular matter. Shouts out to Coach Simmons, go Rattlers, and let's shouts out to Coach Taggart, and let's get on the good foot, Seminoles. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Daley.
Two things, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I too want to congratulate Rick Minor, who is the District 3 Leon County Commissioner-elect. I've invited him to join us for dinner this evening, so I imagine he'll be coming up shortly so we can begin the transition and introducing him to everyone, and he will do a wonderful job. Number two, and finally, this is a resolution request, proclamation request. When I first got elected 12 years ago, one of the first votes, you were here, one of the first votes that we took that night was to go into partnership with the state and buy the land which we have developed into the Fred George Park. Here we are 12 years later. It is the home of the Babe Ruth team, the 15 and under Babe Ruth team that just won the World Series. Wow. So it's over 12 years. We have gone from literally buying the land and building the park to now bringing home another national championship, a World Series championship.
So we had two champions. We had the FSU girls and the
That's right. And during the summer, we had the 15 and under Babe Ruth Tallahassee team win the national championship. And so I'd like to request a proclamation in their honor to be presented in chambers, hopefully before I leave, if that's okay. But I think it's well deserved that they literally beat all the other teams in the nation and bring home the World Series championship.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any objection? Motion carries with Commissioner Pratt being the second.
That's all. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Deloge.
Mr. Chair, Kay, let me add my accolades. You've done a spectacular job, and I have came in as a non-believer, and I am a believer. So you run a great show, and I'm a big fan of the libraries that you run. And like I said early on, I was like, wow, why do we get all these branch libraries? What does this work? And now I look at it, and I realize it's the greatest thing we've got. So when people ask, what do you do? It's always one of the things I talk about as Forest County. So you've done a great job. You've made us proud. Thanks. Bob Kellum has been on the EFA board for a good 25 years, if I had to guess. He was the early on board member. He helped get it started. He was the board chairman for 10 or 15 years, and then he had taken the role as executive director for the last 4 or 5 years, and so last couple of years. In any case, there's some transitions. They're bringing in a new executive director, but I'd like to, when it's appropriate, and I'm not going to ask for time just yet, but I just want to get it in the queue, bring Bob in and do a proclamation on his behalf, ask the board to come by and thank him for all his service. So a lot of it was volunteer. The last couple of years he's gotten paid, but the EFA is making some big changes here, and I'll let them give a report when they come in here, but I'd just like to ask the board's permission to make a motion that we offer a proclamation and thank him for his support and his guidance over the years. So,
Motion been made by Commissioner Lowe, seconded by Commissioner Lindley. Any objection? Motion carries without objection.
thank you, Mr. Chair. And then my aide Brenda will be out for a week or 10 days. She's got kind of a family crisis, so just heads up, keep her in your prayers too. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. First things first, I want to say congratulations to Coach Willie Simmons. The Millennium has started with a victory. 41, I was out there, it was like 41-7. They really, really beat up on Fort Valley pretty good. On the other side, sometimes a team's just better than you on that day, but we'll come back. We'll come back. I'm sure Coach Taggart has it all worked out. So I had the opportunity and pleasure this weekend to sit with Kayvon Thibodeau, big-time recruit from L.A., generous, very, very nice young man. He is actually, he intends to come back to take another visit to Florida A&M University, with him being one of the number one recruits in the nation. I think that's a very heads-up move for a guy of his stature to come back and go over to FAMU to see what HBCU football is like. So hopefully he'll be able to come back to town and take that official. It's been a long summer. Glad to be sitting back in the seat. Missed you guys, whether you believe it or not. Hopefully we have no more issues coming in. I want to congratulate Rick Minor for being elected as our District 3, our new District 3 commissioner. Look forward to working with him in November. Had a great time last week on your canvassing board. I'm going to go ahead and ask the vice chair, can I serve for him actually it'd be 2 years. So whoever's the chair, look, I love serving on canvassing board. We actually had to do another recount. So I spent my entire Saturday from 8 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock that night counting votes. So, but you know what? Had a great time with Judge Smith and our supervisor of elections. He does an awesome job at his job. One of the highest turnouts we've had in the primary around here in a long time. He's projecting about 75 to 80% turnout for our general. Everybody, for the obvious reasons why in Leon County, but I think in the state of Florida, it'd be a pretty huge turnout. And so I encourage everybody, take this opportunity in between time to go ahead and register to vote. If you have not, be a part of that vote that comes up in November. Good luck to all the candidates, and I'll be serving again on that canvassing board. Okay. And that's all I have, and I have one more announcement for the county attorney. Mr. Attorney.
Just wanted to let anyone know that is here for the public hearings that item number 22, which is the standalone hospital, the applicant has requested that it be postponed until the 24th of September's commission meeting. You'll vote on that at 6 o'clock, but if anybody was hanging around to then, I'm going to recommend to the board that we accept the applicant's request and continue the matter to the 24th. The only other announcement is your timer's not working this evening, and so Ms. Voss has designated me as the chime and timer for the evening if we have any speakers, so be prepared.
Awesome. All right, we are in recess until 6 o'clock.